I am Joe Ewell, and I have been supporting Sage products since Y2K, so if the gray hair doesn't show you how old I am, that kind of puts it in a reference. Prior to that, I was in the managerial accounting, not the audit and tax, but operations as a controller for various companies. So let's talk about first proving that I can do 3 important questions in 60 seconds or less. So of course, in order to answer the questions, you do have to have data. So I've got just a small sample data here as far as what's been pulled from invoice history, because that's where your sales information would be. And so let's see if I can do this in 60 seconds or less. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to say insert a pivot table, and I'm just going to go to the defaults, and we'll talk about it later. I'll put in my quantity, extension amount. First question was items. So which item sold the most? Well, I can just do this, and now I see the desks are outselling everything. I've got 60 seconds. Let's also just go in here and do the number format so it's easier to read. I've got it there. So now instead of the item, we want to see which customer. There's my customer. Again, click, sort. Shepherd Motors is the most one who bought the most. And for a salesperson, again, same kind of deal. With this one, we can tell it's Shelley, but keep it consistent. We now have Shelley's. So under 60 seconds, I just answered 3 very important questions because of using pivot tables. Okay, you can see how easy it is to do it, and I did it very quickly. Let's take a look at it in more detail. Okay, so start with here. And one thing, since I was under a 60-second time limit, I didn't set this up, but one thing to consider when you have data is whether you want to name this as a range or do it as a table. I like doing tables because tables have 2 distinct advantages over ranges in that when you insert or when you want to add additional records in a range, you have to insert between the top and bottom records, while with the table, it's dynamic resizing. So, and the second thing is you can format it a lot easier because there's some built-in Excel formatting. So let's look at both of those. So to convert this into a table instead of just a data list, I go to insert, I say table, it already guesses what I have. If you have a bunch of blanks, you may have to manually adjust it. But I'm just going to say OK. And now you can see I do have 4 different formatting. And also if I come down here and put in a number here, you can see, oh, this field has been defined as a formula. And I can description, I can put in another line, and with the banding, you can see that it picks it up automatically. That is not available in range names. So tables are really nice. It also, makes it so that you can then filter automatically based on what kind of things you want to look at. And as I mentioned, you also have the formatting. So up here with the table tools, I now have a design. It's got this built-in different styles that I can choose, and here's quite a few of them, and I can hover over them and see which ones I like or which ones I don't like and pick a different style that I want. I can also take the banding of rows off if I don't like that. I can put banded columns. I can combine them. I can decide if I want a total row, where I want things for first column to be highlighted, last column to be highlighted, we've got that kind of, well, in this case, ugly formatting. Let's get rid of the columns. Let's keep it like this. And so I really like tables, especially with that dynamic that I don't have to remember to put things in there. So I'm going to take off the totals, and it's like, yeah, for sure I don't want the total on. And I'm also going to take these two out because they're gibberish. So now that we've got a nice table, and it's, you know, it'll expand if I need to add data for, you know, next week or whatever. What I can do now is create the pivot table. So just like we went into insert a table, this time I'm going to insert a pivot table and select the range. Well, it already went out and picked the range. Okay, I can say new worksheet. So okay, and this is where we initially started when I was doing the 60-second test. So you saw it's very easy to add stuff. It does look at what kind of, Excel looks at what kind of values you have, and so it's putting the, when I click on this, it puts these items into proper areas, and we'll talk about these here in a little bit. But let's just take a look. When I've done this, by just clicking on them, it's put the item code down here. It's put quantity and extensions over in the values so that I get totals. And if I wanted to take it even deeper, so that I could see a customer and what they right now, here's the item. You can see over here, and here's who bought. Okay, so you can see the desk. There's two purchases by American Business Furniture Futures in Breslin. Same thing with the two-drawer American Business and Greater Alarm. I can easily just click and drag here, and now I've changed the report. So now it's by customer name and what they purchased. So American Business bought three items here, and I can see exactly what kind of quantities they have going on. Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility in here as far as being able to change the report viewpoint. Think of a Rubik's Cube. It's kind of like rotating a cube. How do I want to look at this data? Do I want to look at it from the customer perspective? Do I want to look at it from the item perspective? Do I want to look at it from the salesperson's perspective? How do I go about doing that? Okay, so let's talk about some of the things here that would be useful. First off, you know, you can come in here and change these headers to fit better. So if you want to call it an amount, you can do that. You couldn't call it the extended amount because it already exists. And you know, when I've got this, you've got the built-in capabilities to do this. You saw where I formatted it. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're formatting within a pivot table, don't choose format cells because that will only do the cells that are highlighted. For the column, you do want to go into number format and then choose the appropriate one. So I'm just going to choose this one, and you can see that it did it automatically. Okay. Also, a really great feature in this is when you're looking at this desk, what you can do is you can double click on it, and it drills down and gives you the information for the details for that. So you can see that they made 3 purchases to come out with that total. So I'm going to delete that. Yes, so again, the flexibility of moving things in different orders here is really phenomenal. I can, if I want to redo this, I can drag item description off of there, or I can come up here and unclick it, gets rid of it. But I can, you know, I can then add the salesperson, and now I see the salesperson and who they sold to. So extremely powerful ways to view it. Okay, that that disappeared because I clicked on a cell that was not in the pivot table. If you want to get it back, you can just go there and go from there. So now let's take a look at a couple of other things we can do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the salesperson, product line. I'm going to take the customer off, and let's put the item back in. I'm going to change it to salesperson, product line, and extended amount. So there we go. So now what I've got is I can also come in here and filter on. So by clicking here, I can choose that I'm not really interested in some of these items. I can just choose that I'm interested in the desks. I can say OK. And now all I'm seeing is the type of desk that's been sold. I can also take that off. And one of the huge benefits is these value filters. I can come in here and I can say, well, just make it so that the value filter is based on equal to, not equal to, between, not between, and even a top 10, which is kind of mislabeled, because if you go into top 10, I can say top or bottom. I can say just, top 3 if I wanted to, and say OK. Oops, I did that wrong, sorry. So for this filter here, I'm going to say my top 10, and not on quantity shipped, but on amount. And now I get the top 3 for the amounts that have been sold. So if you want to just see a particular, what the top items are, I would just take these off. And now I'm looking at all the items. I do have my filter on so that it does show just the top 3 there. So usually when you're doing the top 10 or filter, you do want to make it so it's not very complex in your row labels as far as how that works. So you can see here from the drag and drop that the row labels is just that. It defines what's going to be shown in the rows. Okay. The column labels, one of the things we could do is we could say, okay, this is nice, but let's see what product lines I have available, and let's see which customers are buying from that. So then what I've got here is a list. I want to take my quantity out so we can see it a little bit better. We're just looking at the dollars. What we see here is my columns are now for every product line that I sold, it will be listed. So if I only have 3 in this example, but if it works real nice when you have a limited number of them. But if you have you wouldn't want to do it on a date for when you're looking at invoices, because you could have every single date extending out to the right. But with this limited example, with 3, it makes it nice. And if I was to find out that it was too large, I still have that filtering available, so that if I'm not interested in, say, PSA, I can take that off and filter there, and I can still even filter here and say, well, I'm just interested in Orange and Shepherd. And so now I've filtered it further down to the kind of levels that I want to see. If you want to remove those, you can come up here on clear. If you have a clear your filters, and you're back to having everything you want. So, now let's look at a real practical one, as far as, let's say that we want to do individual salesperson's reports. Okay, So what I'm going to also do is come up here, and I'm just going to clear all. I'm going to just start from scratch. Okay, and what I'm going to do is put the salesperson. I'm going to drag him into this report filter, which we haven't done yet. We're going to grab the customer, put him down here, and we'll click on quantity shipped and extended amount. And so now we've got a report here showing which customers have bought what and what dollar amount. And of course, we'd want to format this if we're going to send it out. So this one would be this. This one, we'll just make sure we have no decimal places, and any returns would be shown. So now we've got it looking right, and if we wanted to, yes, we could print this one out for the executive who's in charge of sales, so he can see how well things are going, and he could then choose, okay, I want to just see how Harvey's doing. Okay, and you can do that, and then if you're doing individual reports, you could select this, now print that out, then come back, choose Jim Kelty, and then print this one out, and then same thing with Shelley. But that's, with 3, that's kind of cumbersome. What I would prefer is if I have 3 or 30, I would want Excel to do it automatically for me. And so using Excel's built-in functionality, what we can do is come up here, and under the options, there is a drop-down. So it's a option. I'm not sure what it's called, but by clicking that drop-down, I say show report filter pages. And because I only have one filter up here, it does come out with the salesperson name here, and I say okay. And now notice down here, I have one for Harvey, I have one for Jim, and one for Shelley. So now to print it out, all I have to do is click on the first worksheet tab, hold down the shift key, click on the last one. You can see that now all 3 of them are white, and also notice up here that it says that it's grouped. So now when I go into print, notice I have 3 pages. I can change the full landscape. And one of the things that's really good for this kind of stuff is for your scaling is to fit all columns on one page. So it'll make it fit if the columns normally would extend out. That makes it really nice, so you can do that. So with just one print job, I've been able to create 3 different pages for each of the individuals. Okay, so let's flip back. And what I'm going to do while these are highlighted, I'm just going to delete these. And yes, it's a warning that, hey, you've got data out there, and let's go from there. Okay. So now let's take another look at this as far as what other capabilities we have. So you notice up here in the pivot, or in the ribbons section, we have 2 additional tabs under the pivot table tools. You have options and design. Okay. With the options, we kind of hit on one of these as far as how this works, but with the drop down. But another option we have available. Let me add another layer to this so that we have a good way of looking at things. And let's put in the salesperson. Let's just choose, I think, Harvey. One of the things that can happen when is that your values here will be blank because everybody sold something here. Let's see, if we put in product line, we put the product line back in the columns here. You can see we've got blanks, and so if you wanted to be able to put the zeros in there under your pivot table name options, and I'm clicking on the options, you can come in here and say just show 0. Makes it a little easier to read and navigate through it. You also have here where if I went and went back to my table and I added a couple of new rows, I can come in here and going back into my pivot, I can refresh the data so that it goes out there and grabs it again. Okay, but you also saw that's where the sorting capability is. But over here, you do have a field list that you can do. So if you don't want to see that field list, you can click it off. And if it's like, well, how come it's not there, go into your options and toggle it back on. You also have, with this plus and minus buttons, we'll hide these here. As far as you can see to the left of Greater Alarm Company has a minus. I can get rid of those. They don't print out. And then also field headers. It then takes out the field headers here. But you do lose some of the filtering that you can do. And also, one of the things you can do with this, with the minus, is wherever there's a minus, what you can do is you can also decide whether you want to expand or collapse the whole thing. So here I collapsed it, so I'm looking at just the companies, and I can expand it so I can see that. Let's see. By getting rid of any of these, you can see that I've lost a lot of functionality. It does make it less crowded, but it does lose some of the functionality for what you're setting up. So I recommend leaving all 3 of these on while you're designing. And if you're going to distribute it to other people, then you might want to take those off for their spreadsheet so they can see it a little bit better. So another thing you can do is you can do a right click, and you do have the same kind of settings in field. Here you can expand or collapse. Here's the entire field collapse. Okay, so you have that kind of capability. If there's multiple tiers, you can decide what you want to collapse up to for an individual. So I could just collapse this particular one so I just see Greater Alarm and orange. So 90% of the time people will choose or expand to do the entire field, expand or collapse entire field, because then it affects everybody. Okay. So the other thing that's available is in design. Here's where you can do just like what we saw in the table. We can pick different styles for how we want it to look, and just hovering over it, hit the drop down. You have multiple levels available, and again you have, just like in the tables, where you can do bandit columns and bandit rows and row headers. But important things to know is over here is typically you can say where you want to show the subtotals. Not at all. Put them at the top or the bottom of a group. Typically it's at the bottom. Okay, grand totals. You can have them to the right, to each group, or only for the group, or only grand totals. So right now I've got it on rows and columns, but if I wanted to just see rows, I would have that capabilities. So typically you start off on rows and columns. Report layout. This one is important because you can change it immediately for how it's going to change the layout as far as with the compact. That's the old-fashioned default. The outline changes it so that the indents and stuff look totally different. The one I like to use and the easiest one to read is your tabular form. Okay, so yeah, I think that covers it as far as on basic design type of deal. Again, like I said, I can take the banding of rows on and off if the format allows for it. So, all right. Let's see. This has become a pretty ugly report at this point because I've been moving things around, but you can see how easy it is to change it so that if I wanted to change how things look, it is amazingly easy. Yes, I am using very limited data, but you'll be surprised when you have a lot of data how fast it does respond. It's a very quick tool. The only reason why I did limited data is because I'm working off of the demo stuff, and also I didn't want to move. I didn't want to scroll from screen to screen. So one last thing is that's related to this is, and it's really outside the scope of this, is you can do pivot charts so that you can come in here and pick a chart that you want to do. And, you know, that's pretty ugly. It's probably because I've got too many of these in here. So you can see when I drag and drop, it gives me, it updates it automatically and gives me better information. So when these are too complex, it may be that you've got too many things going on down here for your data that you wanted to report on. But again, you can very easily change the report, so now it's showing different reports automatically. So you can see where this could come in real handy for doing dashboards. Okay. Again, don't have time to go through all the functionality of this. Anybody who's used charts knows that there's all sorts of capabilities you can do of changing different things at different places. And so I just wanted to point this out for those who are interested in doing visuals. So, well, I talked fast, and we're just about out of time. So at this point, are there any questions?
Looks like you covered it all right now there, Joe. Thank you so much. We do not have any additional questions at this time.
Okay. So just a couple of reminders is Sage Summit's coming up. Be sure to attend it if you can. It's been very useful over the past years. I don't see why it won't be this year also. And then also for more resources, including the recordings of previous webinars like for ACA and I just want to brain dead. But for additional recordings, you would go there and you wouldn't have to rely on my memory to see what's available. This will be posted there also. So, all right. If you need to contact me and you have any questions, here's my contact info. That is my direct line. And I think that concludes it at this point, unless there's any questions.
At this point, that will conclude today's TechCast webinar. Thank you, everybody. As Joe mentioned, feel free to reach out to your CSM team or any of us, and we'll be sure to circle back with you and help you out with any of your needs. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.